Welcome, everyone, to the February 6, 2023 Board of Education regular business meeting. Can I have a motion to open the regular business meeting? Xavier, and a second from Teresa. All in favor? That is everyone. It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education enter into executive session to discuss a potential lease agreement with the Huntington Public Library, collective bargaining status associated with 3 UPSEU units, and the superintendent search process in accordance with the open meeting law. I have a motion from Teresa and a second from Xavier. All in favor? That is everyone. We will rejoin the public approximately 7:30. Welcome everybody back to our February 6, 2023 Board of Education regular business meeting. I have a motion to adjourn the executive session and return to our business meeting. A motion from Xavier and a second from Teresa. All in favor? That is everyone. Thank you. We rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, a reminder to everyone that we have exits in the back and on the side of our room. In the case of an emergency, please carefully and swiftly make your way there. And an additional reminder that, as are all of our campuses, this campus is a smoke-free campus. It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve minutes from the meeting of the Huntington Union Free School District Board of Education dated January 9th, 2023. Motion from Tom and a second from Xavier. All in favor? That is everyone. Thank you. We have several FYIs on the agenda tonight. Budget appropriation reports for general school lunch and special aid funds, budget transfers, claim audit report, extracurricular quarterly reports, and the revenue status report. Does anyone have any questions on any of those? Okay, then moving on to the treasurer's report. It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve the December 2022 treasurer's report. A motion from Michelle and a second. Is it Kelly? I can't see. Oh, Kelly. All in favor? Sorry, trying to see everybody. That's everyone. Thank you. What's that?
Is my head in the way?
No. It's just the way the table is. It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve the attached warrants, which were certified for payment on January 18th, 2023 and February 1st, 2023. Motion from Teresa and a second from Kelly. All in favor? That is everyone. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to board member communications and announcements. Who wants to go first? Kelly.
All right. I have a laundry list, but I will try to move quickly for once. So on March 6th, there's going to be a Huntington Arts Night. It's the first event. It's sponsored by the Arts in Education organization, and it's going to be here, actually at the high school, and it starts at 7 p.m. There's going to be a faculty concert, and faculty artwork will be on display. It's going to be an awesome night for kids to come and see their teachers' talent on display. There will also be arts and crafts with the art staff, raffles, and concessions. So all of this is a fundraiser for the Arts and Ed organization, and they serve to bring assemblies and different types of cultural programming to the students. So that's going to be March 6th.
Is that tickets at the door?
Tickets at the door, $5. It's a Monday. You can come before 7. Doors open at 6, and the concert is at 7.
Great.
And maybe this will be an annual thing. They always do a fundraiser of some sort, but they thought it would be fun to showcase the staff's own talent. So I thought that was a really neat idea. And also Heffy, that will be held on March 30th at the Water's Edge again. And the honorees are Reverend Kim Gaines Gambino from Helping Hands Mission and our own Mr. Robert Gilmore. And that's also an amazing evening supporting the Huntington Foundation for Excellence in Education. They provide a lot of grants for our kids. They fundraise. And tickets are on sale now. You can also do the 30 for 30, which is you can submit words of encouragement and congratulations, and it's $30 for 30 words. And you get a nice, the honorees get a really nice keepsake book. You were presented with yours, right?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. So that's going on now, and again, that's March 30th. It's the 30th anniversary. Teresa will talk about the play, so I'll leave that to her. What else? Oh, the High Steppers are competing this weekend at the Nationals in Orlando. They've been competing for the past few weeks, so I just want to give them a shout out and wish them luck. And they're working really hard, so let's all keep them in our thoughts. And just a general observation I had this weekend. We had so many school events. We had the play, we had the Lego League we came to support, the High Steppers, and my kids spent more time at school than they did at home or at school events. And I was just reflecting on how amazing the resources are that we have, giving our kids all of these opportunities and to be with their friends and to see their teachers, and even the aides were there after hours. So I just thought it was really special that they're excited to, on the weekend, be spending so much time at school. So I just want to thank everybody who's got a part to play in that.
Makes it such a community, right?
It does. It's really fun. So that's all I have. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. Teresa, Michelle, who wants
Yeah, I actually wanted to echo a similar sentiment because, with the kids traveling down to Florida for marching band, I mean, there was really, across every discipline in our district, something pretty major was going on. Michelle, Jim, and I this past Saturday had the opportunity to go to the legislative breakfast in Longwood at Longwood Middle School, and it was really great. Last year, I think a few of us attended on Zoom, but it was nice to have it in person. And just, as information for the community, it really is, it's a gathering of school board members and officials with Suffolk County legislators. And they are given questions in advance, and our own Mr. Jim Polanski was one of the, had one of the questions for the legislators to kind of take their temperature and see where they stand on a lot of the advocacy issues that are facing all of our districts. And I'm happy to report that we're all, it seems like we're all very like-minded, and that, well,
Except one.
I was encouraged. The most important issues keep coming up, and that was good for me to see. And I'm encouraged. That's all I'll say. I wouldn't really call it a breakfast though, but and I did want to congratulate the students and the staff really that were involved in the production of Annie Jr. It takes an incredible village to have a performance, as many of you know, but the security team, the custodial staff, our own Chris and Glenn, I mean, just the hours that people spend going above and beyond for our children is really wonderful. And just to see the kids up on the stage, I mean, I think I enjoy seeing everybody else's kids equally as much as seeing my own, and particularly at that age level. They don't really care yet. They don't get that embarrassed. They don't have that embarrassment chip quite yet. So it was really so heartwarming. And both casts, STEM and Woodhull, did a tremendous job. So thank you.
And I know you don't mean to leave out Miss Jen and Miss Stephanie.
Oh, Miss Jen and Miss Stephanie, of course. Yes, oh my God. We would not have gone off without them. But yeah, it was terrific.
All right, I'll have two things real quick. I want to thank the Arts and Ed Committee, Mr. Stellato and Mrs. Rothel, for inviting me to, and I think several of us up here had the opportunity to go to Findlay and see an amazing, incredible presentation. I hope the students there loved it as much as I did. It was really incredible, and I hope we can bring it to some other schools, maybe up at the high school. But this guy that he merged art and inspiring people, the adults, not just the students. I mean, it was pretty incredible. I loved that presentation. And a shout out to Devin Brody, who I think identified the program and helped bring it in. So thank you, Mrs. Rothel, for inviting me. Just a couple of advocacy things. I attended the NISBA, which is National Suffolk School Boards Association, in conjunction with the Superintendent's Association's dinner last week, where the state controller spoke. Jim can speak more to that, but I was really impressed with and understand better that when we are audited, it's really to help us as a school district, as an entity, understand where we have concerns, and then to identify them and fix them. And then they also share with other districts what those issues are, so that other districts can learn from whatever those concerns were. So he was really interesting to hear speak. And I attended the legislative breakfast on Saturday, which I thought was really interesting as well. That's all I had.
Just one of the wonderful things about being here in Huntington is, and on this board, is that you're not just looking at it from a point of view of academics, but everything we're talking about up here, the extracurriculars, our marching band, the plays, so many wonderful things. Just wanted to share that the Booster Club has scheduled dates for summer camps coming up this year, in addition to the normal field hockey and tennis and lacrosse. We have something a little different coming up this year for the newer sports that we have. So there will be a camp for girls wrestling, and there will also be flag football summer camp. And this applies, many grades from kindergarten right up through 12th, various sports that are there. And I would just encourage folks that it's a wonderful way to, spend the summer, a few weeks to have your children, participating within the community with many of the coaches that they'll be having. But just another wonderful part of our district.
Do we know when people should start looking for registration on that?
It's posted right now on Instagram, but I think we don't have a date. It's more of a save the
Idea.
save the
Save
date.
the idea.
Yeah, we're looking. They go all the way from June through July,
Yeah.
June through July. The
Okay.
dates.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Xavier, you don't want to give us an update on that chart?
Not yet, because I don't want to jinx them,
Okay.
but they're off to a great start. And I guess you did. You got me going.
Sorry.
The
Now if there's a problem, it's our
mock
fault.
trial team is in full season. We've got through one competition against East Hampton, and the team did phenomenal. Point differential of 5 puts us into top 10 in the county. And we've got a very young crew, but I think that they're going to be county contenders and possibly state contenders. The electricity in the team is amazing. It's like the Breakfast Club on steroids, and they really understand the problem, and that's half the problem, understanding it. What's funny is that now that I've been doing this for several years, I've got other attorneys and judges throughout the state that are looking at us because we are the team to beat. And I get calls all the time about what our strategies are, and obviously I never give them any, but the team's having a good time, and that's really what matters. And we're up against St. Anthony's at St. Anthony's on Wednesday.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Derby? That's to you, Jim.
Okay, I'm going to try and move quickly here, not to go too heavily into reiteration, but the advocacy events are in full force at this point, and this follows the release of the executive budget proposal on February 1st. So at this point, timing looks good. There are years where governors have not put out their budget proposal by the established statutory deadline, and then the legislature doesn't put their budget out by April 1st when they're supposed to, but it looks like things are moving along the established statutory timeline. So at this point, the event on Saturday, yes, I did submit a question. If I had seen the executive budget proposal prior to my submitting that question, I may have changed it a little bit, but it's important now that we focus on what we are provided with in terms of state aid, balance that out with the needs of the district and the taxpayer burden, and that's going to start today with budget presentations. We did just receive our each year the state comptroller's office, and again, Michelle referenced listening to State Comptroller DiNapoli. Say what you may about politicians in general, he spoke very eloquently. He spoke from the heart. He spoke for a long time, but it was very down to earth. And the gentleman served as a school board member for 10 years prior to his entry into, I think it was the state assembly. So it does give him a unique perspective, and he does understand the challenges that schools face. But he is in a position that requires fiscal oversight, whether it be a town, whether it be a county, or whether it be a school district. We're responsible for abiding by state law, regulation, etc. And I do think he does a good job making sure that there is no waste, that budgets are sound, and that people are doing what they're supposed to do, just to piggyback on what Michelle said. He does issue fiscal stress scores and environmental stress scores each year for school districts, and we are in a 0 fiscal stress score, which is as low as you can go, which is a good thing. We had a little bump a few years back because we had taken out additional we had sold additional tax anticipation notes because our tax collection schedule doesn't match the school year. But at this point, we've brought that back down to where it was years back. So our fiscal stress doesn't exist. You may have seen a couple of districts cited as susceptible to or moderate levels of stress. We do have some environmental level stress in the district, primarily because of socioeconomics and incomes, et cetera, and those are things we have no control over. So we are in a good position, certainly moving into the 23-24 budget cycle again, which begins tonight in terms of the presentations. A lot of great things said. The intermediate level, the Jack Abrams STEM and Woodhull Cass, congratulations, kudos to them, Ms. Jen, Ms. Stephanie. It was absolutely delightful. And the talent we have at those schools that will be feeding into the middle school and high school drama clubs, I will be there to see it, no question. Same weekend as the first Lego League competition. I love the way this competition runs. And by the way, the first organization, it's all volunteers. These folks left. They could not commend our staff, our setup, and our staff enough. Our custodians, our security staff, everybody chipping in to make that experience as great as possible for dozens of teams from across the region. The focus is really on something called cooperation. So yes, they're competing against each other, but they actually gain points if they help another team do better. And it is evident throughout every aspect of that competition. So you have the programming piece where the kids are at the tables with the Lego robots, manipulating, driving them. Some of them are auto-programmed. We had two teams in the competition, a Jack Abrams STEM 5th grade team, a Jack Abrams STEM 6th grade team. Both of those teams won the first Core Values Awards, which is something to be proud of. In addition to the programming, they do research. I was actually the target of a number of those research questions from the 5th grade team. They actually researched solar and were very interested in what we are doing in district as our transition to solar energy across the district, building by building, is underway. So they actually did very well in the research piece of this, and they're going to continue to work on their programming skills, but they're so proud of them across the board, and all teams who participated. High School Musical coming up is Seussical. That is a couple of weeks down the road, but it should be equally as enjoyable. Mentioned the High Steppers going down to Orlando for the Nationals. The marching band just got back. Hope you had a chance to see some of the social media posts. They had a great time.
Debuted their new uniforms.
They debuted their new uniforms. It's just so nice to be back in good working order as a planet, so we can get kids these experiences that they will never forget. We begin Black History Month in February, and there's a number of things going on at all our schools. We obviously have programs sponsored by the town, by Tri-CYA, by the district, so please stay tuned for those. And other things, Tom, you mentioned Summer Booster Club Camp. There's a lot of capital project work taking place this summer, so we're trying to squeeze everything into all the open areas in the buildings. There are roofs being replaced, there are boilers being installed, there are solar panels being put in, but we're going to do the best we can to make sure everything else gets in here as best we can. In addition to the Booster Club, you have Scope returning to the high school with its summer arts program and STEM program as well. So we're looking forward to bringing all of this back. And a couple of communications that went out to district households recently. Kindergarten registration, that information is out there. Universal pre-kindergarten, we're actually going to be receiving more money for universal pre-kindergarten this year, which is actually going to cost us more money at the same time. I'll get into that during the budget presentations, but we are looking to obviously fill those seats. And those who are going to be 5 by December 1 are now eligible to start school in Huntington. And we're looking forward to bringing our newest crop, I think it's 2038 at this point, into the district. It's amazing. This week on Wednesday, I think it's 2038, Adult Ed registration on site is on Wednesday. But please, if you're interested, we have everything from pickleball to belly dancing, something for everyone. You can register online, you can register in person, you can register by mail.
It's just funny
Those
that
are
you
just
picked
the
those
two
two.
I
think it's
don't
funny.
know why. I could have gone with something else, I guess. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Why?
Just to echo what Michelle said about the Finley program, speed painting, it was absolutely phenomenal to watch this gentleman paint something that looked like a bird, and they paint it in 3 minutes and flip it over, and it was Martin Luther King, that last painting. It was absolutely incredible, and that was the apex of the program, and the message was phenomenal. We do need to bring that to other buildings.
Yeah, his energy was infectious, and his message was just so uplifting and inspirational. And I really loved seeing the kids' faces and hearing their giggles. And I think he was really just such a motivational
It's
experience.
absolutely phenomenal. And this he works for Disney, he works for Marvel. They grabbed this guy in a heartbeat because he's that talented. But it is something that I would like everybody in this room to see. I did miss athletics. Thank you, Xavier. A number of our teams are really doing well. They're enjoying themselves, most importantly. But we do have student athletes qualifying in many sports. You saw today we have the boys fencing team has moved on. We have boys track back in the elite position that they have been for years. We have a number of wrestlers who are league champions, 8 qualifying, I believe, for the county tournament. And our basketball team senior days were last week, and those are growing programs. We're in a good place with athletics. We're in a good place with music and arts, and we're in a good place with curriculum, as you will hear today. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to our first public commentary. I'll review the rules briefly. If you come to the mic, please identify yourself and your affiliation with the district. Public commentary is available for our community members, meaning our residents and our staff and faculty. There's a list that you can sign your name and address on. Each person would have 3 minutes to speak, and you should, the first speakers should keep their topics to the items for discussion and action. If there's time remaining of the 30 minutes that we allot for public commentary, then you may speak on whatever topics you like that are not personnel or student centered by name. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? Okay, there is an opportunity for public commentary at the end of the meeting if something occurs to you while you're listening to the presentations. Do you want me to introduce Ms. Roulette?
You can do that. I think she is ready to go.
Okay.
We have,
So our first presentation is from Finley Middle School, and I will introduce the principal of Finley, Ms. Tracy Rothel.
Yay.
Good evening, thank you.
you have the clicker?
I do. I think I have the clicker. Look at that. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Plansky, Dr. Acker, Ms. McCoy, Mr. Hender, and the Board of Education for this opportunity for myself, the staff, and the students to present all the wonderful things that have been happening at Finley Middle School. Okay, back one, sorry. In 2019, many of you might know that I moved from Woodhull Intermediate up to Finley Middle School. And at that point, my big goal was to help with those students transition from an intermediate building into a middle school with that age of 12 to 13, and also dealing with only 2 years of these students to make sure that their experience was positive and also academically focused. So at this point, I want to just go over some of the initiatives that have been there since 2019. With the help of administrators, teachers, parents, and students, we work together to improve student achievement and social emotional well-being. These programs are a result of everyone's efforts and dedication to put the students' needs first and help create a positive learning environment. I'm going to go through these different initiatives throughout the time. I'll have teachers come up and students come up to kind of share their personal experience and many of the teachers that are behind the programs that you're about to see. The first one, all the fun academic stuff is mine. So the iReady program, it's a new diagnostic program that we're starting at Finley just this year. There are 3 benchmark testing. We do a fall, a winter, and a spring testing. This is a lot like the K through 6 building who has Ames Web, but this is a little bit more in depth. It has a little bit more information that we're finding and using at this point. Is a fantastic program. The students' reading and math levels are determined by these assessments, and students then work on what we call an individualized program based on those benchmark results, helping them move up level by level for each of those tests, and it's really specific to their needs and the areas that they have deficits in or areas they excel in. From that point, what do we do with this information? We then take it to a student-based instructional team. And these teams meet 3 times a year, and we actually analyze those students' benchmark results. We go through the students that are behind, we go through the students that are on level, we go through the students who are achieving, and then they're placed into or removed from support classes based on those results. So if you're wondering why we have math labs that you'll see when we go into all of our staffing, why we have any RTI programs, where we have all of these, or we're looking for enrichment, these are the places that we find that these kids can get these type of programs. These members include the following. We have our ELA, math, science, and social studies teacher that are in those students or that grade level. Our guidance counselors are part of this team. A reading teacher, our ELA coach, our ENL teacher, and of course myself, I sit on that. Just so you're aware, this does happen K through 6. All of our buildings are doing that. I'm sure my principals over there will agree to that. It's just I've made sure that this continues through into the 7th and 8th building, where we find that this is the most important time, where many times the gaps are getting bigger, and we want to make sure we identify these kids and make sure that we try to close those gaps. Another part is the Fun Behavior Committee. We have now just looked into looking at our discipline and taking a look at our data, and we want to reduce our referrals. We want to find out where are our biggest areas. So we took the data from last year, and we found out that these 4 top areas were disruptive behavior, inappropriate behavior, cell phone use, and students being late to class. So what we do is we have what we call our Finley expectations. We focus with the kids all throughout the year that it's about safety, respect, and responsibility, and we make sure that they have these 3 things in our classrooms, our cafeteria, and by use of our Chromebook. So what we do is our current grade level assemblies, we review these expectations periodically throughout the year, and at this point in time, I have actually reached out to Mr. Plansky about implementing some restorative justice circles, which we'll talk a little bit more about in restorative circles, but taking it where it's not a punitive thing when students are doing something wrong, but a learning experience for them rather than always getting in trouble. We want to stop the behavior, figure out what the behavior is, and try to correct the behavior. As you see, the cell phone use is my big one. I'm working on that. So from there, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Rogan to come on up for Algebra for All.
Good evening. Also, they all wanted to come up and stand with me for Algebra for All. I was left alone.
You can do that.
And I tried. I did try. So this is our 4th year of doing it. We have added an extended period, so the students take either a period or a period and a half, so they get that support that they need. The students like the class because it takes more time, gives them that opportunity to actually understand the material. And last year was our first year. They finally all took the Regents in June, from implementing it and then having COVID, and now, so last year was our first year. All students in 8th grade took our Algebra for All program, and now this year they will also. I don't know who's after me.
I want to jump back in here and now talk about another initiative. I think many of you are well aware that in high school or even in middle school, we have things called high honor roll and we have honor roll. We have initiated at Finley, it's called on a roll. So we look at students that are recognized for improving their overall GPA by 5 points or more. So what happens is students are recognized in their classes for this and as a building. So if you have a student that say has an 85 average, from there they work really hard, they now have a 90 average, they may be on honor roll. Now they're actually on a roll too, so we recognize them for that. We can even take kids that maybe are only in the 70s, but they're working hard. They now have an overall average of a 75. Those students are recognized for that hard work. We want to make sure that you're working hard, you get the recognition too. It doesn't have to be a high grade, it just has to be moving up and improving your grade. So this has been something we just started last year. We're excited because we're now just finished our 2nd quarter, so these students will be recognized probably in the next 2 weeks. And as you can see, we've been recognizing them for our 2nd and 3rd quarter. They're able to get these awards. I'll have to introduce Miss Capewell and I think Miss Stanford.
So we are on the action team at Finley, and one of our goals was really to give students more of a voice in our building and incorporate them in our decision making. So we created a group of student ambassadors who are here today. If you want to stand with us, even though you're over there, you can stand. So our student ambassadors were selected to spearhead our No Place for Hate projects and really just be students that their peers can seek out. They can kind of help the flow of our building and encourage other students to get involved. So we have, Amelia's going to speak first, I think, on our school-wide climate survey.
I'm Amelia. I'm in 8th grade, and what we did was in our English class, we did a school-wide climate survey, and then we all met in the library in December, and we just talked about it, like the results.
Ricardo?
Hi, my name is Ricardo. I'm in 8th grade. So in our homerooms, we did a restorative circle, and at the end, we did a school-wide survey on how, like, on respect and stuff like that. Yeah.
At this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ms. Whitfield, who will speak to you about our restorative circles in the building.
So I have a student with us, Sophie, who's going to also explain. Do you want to start off?
Hi, my name is Sophie, and I'm in 8th grade. And restorative circles are to help students be able to speak freely about any topic they want, and they can lead circles.
Okay, circles are done monthly. The entire building runs the circle at the same time, so it's the connection with the homeroom and the teachers and students in that homeroom, so that they're connecting with each other. So it's the same group that meets every month for a specific lesson that was developed for social emotional learning. I'll do the last one. The circles foster connection.
Circles can foster a connection between adults and students that lead a positive school culture.
And then finally, circles can also be done on academic topics. They don't have to stay social emotional. So we do have teachers that are doing it for like English classes on specific characters, or as a review for what you know, or an introduction to a topic on what you're going to learn. What do you already know about it? So circles have been an intricate part since 2019, and it's been a really pleasure to see.
I'd like now to invite Ms. Biscardi and Ms. Costa to discuss with you our mentoring program.
The Findlay Middle School Mentoring Program is based on the friendship model of mentoring, with the goal of increasing the connection to school through a one-to-one student-teacher, positive, supportive relationship. Teachers volunteer 1 period a week to play games, do crafts, or shoot a basketball, but most of all, they listen, the most important part of the mentor-mentee relationship. And Ms. Biscardi, Dr. D, and myself are always available at all times if a mentee discloses something that requires attention or intervention.
Our volunteer teachers go through a mandatory professional development before they're matched, and then that initial professional development is followed up by a check-in 3 to 4 weeks after they've been matched, which we actually do in the form of a restorative circle. We've already had a kickoff meet and greet bagel breakfast for the mentors and mentees, and we are in the process of planning other group activities as well. Ideally, the mentor-mentee relationship will last 2 years, both 7th grade and 8th grade, and the mentors also stay in touch with their mentees over the summer by sending postcards in July and August. We currently have 43 amazing mentors matched with 46 mentees, and on the next slide you'll see a picture of some of our staff mentors this year.
Mr. Polanski's favorite, our therapy dogs, and we do have a guest here with us this evening.
Everyone's excited to see me, I'm sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Mary DiBenedetto, psychologist at Findlay, and this is wonderful Gary Zellner, who is one of our 3 dog handlers. Back in 2019, I was really lucky to go to a conference upstate, and I started hearing about all these psychologists that actually had dogs in their office, and I was like, and then Tracy regretted having me go up there. I was like, you don't know, we have to have a dog here. And it started with 1 dog, Charlie, and now we have 3 dogs. We have Charlie, we have Jam, and we have Hazel, our beautiful golden retriever. And some research has shown that having therapy dogs has been associated with a decreased level of stress in students. Reading to a therapy dog is related to increased scores in reading, better school attendance, improved concentration, and academic motivation. It really has benefited all of our students and our staff. We originally envisioned using it in our smaller special ed classes. However, the benefit is really to all of our larger classes has been noted also. Just last week or the week before when we had the math midterm, we were in the hallway and I had a couple of kids petting the dog, and one of the girls turned around and said, "Now I'm ready for my midterm." And I was like, "Wait, I want to record you." It was so perfect. So we really couldn't have done this without the support of Mr. Polanski and Tracy. And this also gives me an opportunity to thank our selfless therapy dog handlers like Gary, who volunteer their time to help make everyone happy when they come through the doors. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
After everyone could pet him during the break.
I don't know if you heard that, but we'll let Hazel come over and say hi to everyone after. And I actually now own a dog. Thank you very much.
Chip has not quite made it to therapy.
I'm working on it. If I could have him in the office every day, you'd be okay with that, right? It's my therapy dog for me. From there, okay, so I'm back up with music during passing time. Dr. D just left, but this was something we did talk about. When kids are walking through the hallways in Findlay, so some of you that have been there, we found that it does change the feeling of it. So we have a spa music Monday through Thursday. You can feel like you're getting a massage and very calming movement. And then on Fridays, we do kind of jump it up. We do some fun music, 80s, 90s, some current pop hits. We actually did 70s the other day. I don't know how well it went over. I enjoyed it, but apparently some of the younger teachers were not impressed. But we do try to, on Fridays, shake it up a little bit, so you never know what's going to happen in Findlay on a Friday. So those were some of the things that I've brought in since I've been there in 2019, which I think is a great job, and it wasn't for these faculty members being part of it and having ideas and going with it. They wouldn't be part of it, so I'm very happy with those initiatives. The other part I'd like to focus on is there are stuff that's been going on in Findlay for years, and there's some other courses that have come in, so I'd like to take just a moment to just highlight some of those things that have been happening for a while in our brand new courses. So I'm going to start with our 7th grade teaming, which has been in place, and Mrs. Whitfield will talk about that.
She only wanted me up here because I've been here since the beginning of it for 28 years. 7th grade has had it for 28 years. So it's the same 100 students with 4 core teachers of the math, science, social studies, and English that we get to regularly meet and discuss and bring up. Kids who would normally slip through the cracks we're able to focus on, and that's really the big help for this. It does help in reducing discipline issues and having team meetings with the students where we can call them in and kind of, fix it yourself before we call your parents in, or if there are things that are going on, we can talk to them about it, get them the right guidance or help, whatever is needed. It's a way to check on the students and help them grow and make better decisions. And it's interdisciplinary projects can happen on a regular basis, which is really nice, or interdisciplinary field trips that we can plan that are based on, different things, whether it's Old Bethpage or some of the other stuff that's out there that we try to use and incorporate. So teaming has been a real positive, especially for the 7th graders.
Sorry about that. And Dr. D and Miss Carey, if you could come back on up and talk to us about the Friendship Club. I think we have some students coming up also.
Hello again. So Friendship Club started back in 2008 with just 4 students. It has grown significantly in scope and capacity at Findlay, and our last count is up over 60 students, and we're doing it every lunch period. Well, actually, no, 3 out of the 4. Again, it's a research-based, I'm probably the only one who cares about the research. Research-based program students, students with special needs acquire and maintain social skills better when they learn from similar age peers than with adults. Using motivation experiences like play and peer group activities assists with the acquisition of social skills. As a psychologist, my focus is on helping the students build their social skills by practicing perspective taking, being aware of both verbal and nonverbal skills while interacting with their peers.
Hello. Hi. And as the speech and language therapist as part of the Friendship Club, the focus is to work on communication, receptive and expressive language skills, and social use of language for our students with their peers. The Friendship Club gives our students an additional practice opportunity for carryover and practice of the skills that we address with our students individually in our sessions. We usually start Friendship Club with a push-in lesson on disabilities, and this results in student mentor volunteers. We then provide more in-depth training for the mentors. Friendship Club activities that we've done have included things like speed friending, practicing conversation maintenance, P.S. I Love You Day, which we're in the process of doing something for this month. We'll do things like lucky messages, shamrocks on students' lockers throughout the year, encouraging supportive messages.
Friendship Club benefits not only our identified students, but our peer mentors who gain skill in empathy, compassion, patience, and communication, which of course helps in their future journey. We have worked with amazing students who we feel that this experience has helped lay the foundation for a bright future, really in any field that they go in. And I would like to introduce Alexa as one of our wonderful helpers.
Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm in 7th grade. And I think that Friendship Club is really helpful for like not only the kids who are in it, but also me and my other friends who are in it, because it helps us just become more aware of like how to help other people and what they do and how they do it. And I've also noticed growth in some of the other students' abilities since working with them in the beginning of the year.
Thank you for doing that.
At this time, I'd like to have Mr. Dietrich come up to talk about our new class, Virtual Enterprise Junior, and he has a few students that will be joining him.
Hi, everyone. My name is Greg Dietrich. Thank you for inviting us here tonight to showcase some of the great initiatives we have down at Findlay. One that I'm particularly proud of is Virtual Enterprise. As many of you know, VE at the high school is doing great. It's a flourishing, thriving program, and we wanted to bring that excitement and energy down here to Findlay. In Findlay, we have 9 companies, and as you might be aware of, each section is tasked with creating a business they would like to run. From there, they learn all the skills and face all the challenges necessary to run a successful business. Already, with only half the year, they've created websites. We're in the process of creating a commercial using the green screen technology in the library. We've talked about finances, marketing materials, business pitches, and target markets. And this is something I love. I could talk about it all night, but instead of hearing me ramble on, we have a couple of students that are in VE right now that can talk about their experiences in the first year of Virtual Enterprise at Findlay. Edgar Castrian-Riba and Ricardo Berry.
So our company is basically like a pillow built in a computer case. It defeats the purpose of learning basically, so it's kind of hard to talk about. So it makes the computer case soft, so you can sleep on it during class. So
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich.
So the target is basically targeting teenagers and students in school. So I came up with the idea because I kind of sleep in class. So yeah, I mean yeah.
So the name of the company that we have is Get Comfy. So we basically what Ricardo said, we're making a Chromebook, supposed to have a pillow in there, right? So I think it's a great idea because sometimes I think every student get tired I think about every 3 class or 5 classes. So I think it would be I think it would be really good idea to do that, because I feel the last 5 minutes that we have for class, I think it will be really really good, and they can really help you for the next class. You can relax a little bit. Yeah. And so yeah, it's great.
Hi, my name is Senna Knopf, and I'm part of the Cozy Car Company. Basically, our company designed a special type of pillow with an arm attachment that you attach to the inside of your car for passengers, not the driver. And yeah, I was told to specify that. So, and basically, if you're having a rough time sleeping on a bumpy ride in the back, you can use it. It's adjustable and it helps you sleep better. So, yeah. Hi, my name is Emma Mortensen, and I'm a part of the Creaso Spray Company. Our company has developed a shoe cleaner and a shoe spray that removes creases from your shoes, like leather shoes or like Air Forces. It can also clean the shoes because plenty of people complain about the shoes and like how uncomfortable a crease protector can be. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so our next one is some enrichment programs that we've added into the Finley. So during 7th grade, during lunchtime, students during their lunchtime can go into STEM activities, it piques their interest, and get them to work collaboratively on different STEM projects.
7th grade, and there's like a lot of different opportunities and projects. They have an opportunity to work on like different things and learn about different like science stuff. I was part of it in 7th grade and I had a lot of fun. And I learned a lot as well as like having fun with my friends and stuff. So, yeah.
So as you can see, they can do things, water bottles, building bridges. We do all of this coding, egg drop challenges. As Asena said, she was one of it for last year in 7th grade. So we're excited for that. Thank you. And we don't want to leave 8th grade out, so.
Hi, I'm Elliot Minot, and I'm in 8th grade, and I'm a part of the Social Studies Enrichment Program. And it's basically where 8th grade students participating in it go every other day, either an A day or a B day. And for the quarters 1 and 2, the project was National History Day, and you choose and research and create a project on a topic that fits the theme.
Hi, my name is Carmen DiBartolomeo. I'm the librarian at Finley, and I've been able to support this program and for this year and help the kids with their National History Day project doing research. For quarters 3 and 4, they also work on civic readiness, their capstone, where students identify a local, regional, and national issue and conduct research with the aim of developing strategies and solutions and taking informed action. Students will then create and present their overall project for the middle school capstone committee. And for students who meet the criteria successfully will receive 1 point towards their 6 points needed to receive their Seal of Civic Readiness, a brand new state-sponsored formal recognition that a student has attained a high level of proficiency in terms of civic knowledge, civic skills, civic mindset, and civic experiences. The Seal of Civic Readiness distinction on a high school transcript and diploma.
Now we're getting to the fun stuff. We're going to go ahead and have a couple students come up and talk about the different clubs that we have at Finley.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm in 7th grade, and I'm in art club. But all the other clubs that we got art club, we got community club, we got drama club, got other ones. Honors choir, jazz assembly, kick line, math counts, mathletes, National Junior Honor Society, newspaper/book club, robotics, student council, ukulele, wind and string ensemble, yearbooks, and Yorkers.
Hi. My name's Isaiah Bynum, and I'm a part of the drama club, stage crew, student government, and art clubs. And I'm going to be talking about the drama club today. The drama club is really it's a very close experience. It lets a lot of students express themselves and choose different ways to interact, and it really gets you closer with other students you wouldn't usually talk to because you all are doing something else and something different, and to be together and make sense on stage you had to connect on a level outside of drama club. So I feel like personally I haven't made a lot of friendships, but a lot of my friendships have grown a lot stronger because of drama club. And I've done drama for 2 years now, and I feel like it's a really interactive and important experience that a lot of people should try out.
My name is Isaac Ramirez, and I'm in 8th grade. I'm in drama. I'm in stage crew and newspaper club. But today I would be talking about stage crew. In stage crew, we like to build the sets for all the drama and the play. We are building a set and the props as as the day goes on, and it's a really fun experience. I get to help out with my tech teacher and all my friends. It's really fun, and I had experience with building stuff.
Hi, my name is Analia Bonilla. I am part of the art club. Mostly what we kind of do in our club, it depends what we're doing. Mostly kind of like building with clay and painting it.
This is my second year in Findlay, and I've been part of a lot of different clubs, most of them up there. But some of my favorites are the ensembles, which include the jazz and symphonic, which is the wind and string, and the honors choir. And I've made a lot of new friends, and I've also learned a lot of different music techniques that I wouldn't learn in my normal classes. And I've had a lot of fun. I'm passionate about music, so I get to do it outside of school during the day, and I've made a lot of new friends, and I just think overall it's something great and something I think a lot of students should try out.
Just a side note on those ensembles are going to be in March. We do have a honors choir concert that comes up in March, and our drama club will be coming up at Cinderella, which will be in March also. So big time in March. Our last slide for the night is sports. How about my sports people?
Hi again. So there is a variety of sports to choose from, such as fall sports. There's football, boys and girls soccer, boys and girls cross country, girls field hockey, and girls tennis. Me myself, I was on the football team, and this year I was a captain, so that was like a fun sport to be a part of, from my experience.
For Winter 1, sports include boys basketball and girls volleyball. I was on girls volleyball, and I think it's really fun, and you get to make new friends.
Hello again. So I'm doing like the spring sport. So we have like girls basketball, boys volleyball, and we have like wrestling. I'm also part of the wrestling team. So I say like wrestling is a really good work because you have a lot of discipline, like to play. So yeah, that's
Great. In the spring, there's baseball, boys tennis, boys and girls lacrosse, softball, and boys and girls track and field. And I was on girls lacrosse, and it was really fun. And yeah.
So just to finish off, I appreciate that, and I hope you enjoyed having the students kind of give a little insight. So though, finally, to finish it off is we're going to kind of show you in pictures what it's like, these initiatives and some of the activities that we just talked about. So whenever you're ready, Mr. Polanski.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Raffel. That was an amazing presentation. I just want to say that I've had experiences with almost all of the faculty members and staff members that you presented today, and they are just the type of people that think outside the box about what the students really need, and that's evidenced by all these great initiatives that you have presented to us today.
Thank you.
And Dr. G, I just want to say you're not the only one, because my very first school board conference that I went to, I went to this presentation about therapy dogs at this school that had their own therapy dogs, and immediately I was like, Jim, we have to do this. Are you crazy? So, but now at my house, I'm advocating for a service dog in our own home. So, you know, I have to convince the other boss that's there. So, but hopefully.
I just want to say I really loved that, all of it, that especially the honor roll concept. I think it's really just a brilliant way to encourage growth and a growth mindset. So that's
Thank
really
you very
great.
much. Appreciate that.
Just a
Next.
couple of quick comments. You know, Findlay is an interesting place. The middle school in Huntington is an interesting place because it's just 7th and 8th grade. Most school districts have a middle school that's 6, 7, 8 or 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is a school where kids are new to the building and then they're leaving the building. So it really takes some creativity and some TLC to make this a place that they can call their own within a short period of time. Couple of things that I'll throw in to supplement the great job that our staff and students did. Allison, Ms. Capel, I think, mentioned action teams. We have an action team at each building that's focused specifically on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I have to say, what they do at Findlay is they do a great job across the district in this setting. But Findlay, you've set the bar very high, not just for here, but for other places as well, in terms of making your school a welcoming place, a place where kids and staff really want to be. And honestly, you walk in there at any given time, it is a true to form family, whether it be a flash mob or something else that you could never imagine when you walk into a building. The therapy dogs, obviously, near and dear to my heart as well. You mentioned it started out in a reading setting. I happened to be in a classroom. It was a physical science classroom where a child was performing a laboratory activity with one hand and had the hand on the dog with the other hand, and honestly knew everything that was going on in terms of forces and momentum, and it is a terrific program. And I will add that this is not a random program. Hazel is from a reputable organization. There is a vetting process here. We use a Therapy Dogs International, and we use companies that we know we're going to get animals like Hazel that have been well trained and are well prepared to deal with anything that comes up in a school setting, and it really does help our kids beyond where you could ever imagine. Ricardo and Edgar, I'm going to let that continue as long as you put one of those pillows in my Chromebook. Done by the end of tonight, and we're good. And I'll also mention, just seeing some of the kids come up, I had the pleasure of being a part of or witnessing the wellness committee meeting at Findlay a couple of weeks ago. I know Ricardo and Senna. These kids have their voices and they are not afraid to use them. So in terms of restorative practices and just having a voice in terms of what goes on in their building, again, I hope that all of our young people recognize that their voices are among the most important that we can hear at any point in time, not just now, but moving forward as they get to the high school. Mrs. DiPartolomeo, I think, mentioned National History Day, the Seal of Civic Readiness. That is a new program in Huntington. It's actually new in New York State, and we got in right at the front end of this, where we're going to be able to offer our students a seal on their high school diploma if they've completed certain requirements, and those requirements obviously begin at Findlay, and they begin in a setting where they can really learn from the experiences that they take advantage of. Another reason that we decided to have this presentation, and I'll make this the last comment I make. You know, a couple of years back before the pandemic, Findlay was identified as a school in need of targeted support and intervention based on the performance of one subgroup. It was the one school in the district that had this in place, and that accountability system stopped in its tracks throughout the pandemic and just came back for the 22-23 school year. Obviously, we work hard across this district, so this is not just about Findlay, but it happened to be the school that was identified, and we attribute some of that to the transition that kids have to make. It's a very difficult age. I remember when my own kids were that age, But the accountability results have arrived in preliminary status, and the reason they're preliminary is because school districts that have been identified now have X number of weeks to appeal. We don't need to do that because all of our schools and every subgroup and every child and every staff member and everything about this district is in good standing, and I want to thank you for all the hard work that you and your staff have done. Thank you guys again for coming. I know that was a little long, but it was worth every minute.
I just want to say that Mr. Cusack should be ready for all their ideas, because I think they're coming with ideas. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
please. We'll just take a 30-second recess so the students can get to their homework.
Okay, so moving on to our next item for discussion. It is upon recommendation from the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education adopt the attached school district calendar for the 2023-2024 school year. I have a motion from Bill and a second from Michelle. Discussion?
Just a couple of quick comments. So one of the concerns about the 22-23 school calendar, not necessarily in Huntington, but across Long Island, is that there is lack of alignment between districts in Western Suffolk and Eastern Suffolk and in Nassau, which does make it challenging for districts. For example, we have staff members who live in Eastern Suffolk districts who have children in schools there. When the vacations don't align, you've got to make the arrangements, obviously, but it does make it a lot easier if there is some sort of congruence between the calendars across both these regions, and that was accomplished with this calendar. Now, everyone is going to be a little bit different based on number of contractual days and certain nuances, but I will tell you that what you see here is, for the most part, in alignment with districts across Long Island. There are a number of unique situations, for example, a split spring break, which is accommodated in both March and April, and everything else fell into line relatively seamlessly. At the beginning of the year, we have conference days scheduled for Friday and Tuesday, and the first day of school would then be on Wednesday, September 6th. September is a little less interrupted by holidays because some of them fall on the weekends, and we are continuing with the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That was a popular one this year. We hadn't done it before this year. I think we did it once and then took it back, but we're going to leave that in place. And you'll notice that there are 2 contingency days built in as needed. Knock on wood, we won't need any this year. So those days will remain as they are, grayed out as vacation days for the current school year. But other than that, I think it's relatively straightforward.
The 2 spring recesses are to align between Easter and Passover. Is that why there's
Easter
a
and
split in
Passover
the
fall
holidays?
at different times of the spring.
Yes.
And
Different
April
calendars
10th
landed
is
differently.
Eid, which falls on a Wednesday. There is another Eid holiday later in the spring that falls on a Sunday. So that one does not have to be accommodated in the school day calendar.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? Problems? Then all in favor? That is everyone. Bill, yes? Did you raise your hand?
I still want to see the day after St.
I thought it was the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl Monday?
I thought it was Super Bowl Monday. Okay. All right. It is upon, oops, hold on. I didn't switch yet. It is upon recommendation from the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education accept the audit report issued by the Office of the State Comptroller, 2022 M-178, whatever that's supposed to be. It is upon further recommendation from the superintendent of schools that the Board of
Glad you
Education
pointed out the hyphen.
adopts the associated corrective action plan as outlined in Appendix A of the report. A motion. Michelle, and a second from Teresa.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank Dr. Acker and the business office for their poise and professionalism. It is always a little anxiety-provoking when the state comptroller comes in. Yes, it was our turn. The last time we were audited was back in, I believe it was 2014. It was a different focus. This could not have gone more smoothly. With the state audit team, the controllers, examiners come in, and the first thing they do is they do a brief entry interview, and they look at the financials, and they look for an area that they'd like to focus more attention on. So they're really looking for something that they think we can improve upon. They had to drill down to online banking, and there are some improvements that could have been made there, and particularly in this day and age of, and I think this becomes a more prominent topic amongst the examiner focal points in all districts because of the cybersecurity risks that are out there. So I'm proud of our team because the majority of the corrective or the recommendations that were made were corrected even before the audit process had begun in some cases, and certainly before it had completed in others. The report came and went. It's been published for the last couple of weeks. There was really nothing of major concern in it. As a matter of fact, it was all positive in terms of recognizing the hard work that our staff does and also in providing us with recommendations that can strengthen our internal controls. So once again, thank you to our business office staff, and the controller's office has had the response from me, which was combined with the corrective action plan, primarily because there was really nothing to, the last time we were audited, there were things that we questioned, et cetera. This was not that type of situation.
Yeah, at the exit meeting, they were
Kathy, if there's anything you want to add?
properly impressed.
No.
Well, I'll just
Sorry.
add that, in doing the corrections,
That it's over?
not only did we improve our own
Oh, yeah, I know what you're going to say.
procedures, but by doing so, Dr. Acker's efforts and with Mr. Polanski's guidance, it helped pretty much every school district across the state because she took care of something that now they won't have to.
There was an
So-
agreement with a prominent bank that they were resisting a little bit in terms of putting something on paper. So
Right.
they work with 300 and something school districts, and we were able to help facilitate that agreement being drafted.
Right. So good was done all around.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Then all in favor? That is everyone. Thank you. It is upon recommendation from the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approve the submission of an undue burden independent evaluator hardship waiver application to the State Education Department and authorize the superintendent of schools and board president to execute such application on behalf of the district. A motion from Xavier and a second from Kelly. Explanation?
So we are actually still working on revising our annual professional performance review plan. We haven't had to worry about this for a couple of years because the pandemic put a halt to this process. And it does look like, or there has been a lot of discussion about, and you heard it at the legislative breakfast over the weekend, this process may go by the wayside in the next year or so. Regardless, we must put a plan in place by March 1st. We are obligated to recraft our plan. Number one, we have a new contract with the teachers in place, and once the contract turns over and a new contract is in place, you are obligated to prepare a new plan. Plus, there are changes that have to be made because the assessments have changed. There's no more grade 4 science assessment. It's now in grade 5. Mr. Graber and I, and Mrs. Rothel and I, we've been working on, listen, we all know this process is flawed beyond belief, so we're working on something that we can live with until the point we can get back to local control of this. But in the interim, we are obligated this month to submit the independent evaluation or evaluator hardship waiver. That simply states that we don't have to bring in an outside person to do evaluations or observations within the context of our observation process, because it would take principals out of our buildings to do observations in other buildings, and to be honest with you, to take our principals, particularly at the primary level, out of the building for even an hour when they're the only administrator in the building is not the way to go. So this allows us to bypass some of the mechanisms that would require us to pull administrators out of their own buildings to go to other buildings to do evaluations, if that makes sense. We've done it every year. This is really just re-upping this hardship waiver. And we will have the plan, we hope to have the plan on the agenda on the 27th.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions? All in favor? That's everyone. Thank you. Our next item is Mr. Polanski's first budget presentation of the fiscal year.
And I know this is what you've all been waiting for.
I'll get Emily on the phone for you.
Oh, jeez.
Is what? Budget presentation. And this is usually the budget presentation with the least amount of slides.
Right.
I
That's
already
what
made that
Christine just
joke.
said.
I just said it quietly.
All right, I know nobody's going to mind this, but I'm going to move quickly. So this
Oh,
is
no, please drag it out.
this is the first in a series, and at this point, we're just going to take a quick look at the tax levy limit, the tax cap calculation. We will have the first budget draft ready by February 27th, along with a presentation of the first set of expenditures that we look at. And we also moved, Dr. Acker is going to present with Mr. Austin capital proposals for the upcoming proposition work that would be done the following summer. So actually this summer we'll be doing capital work that was approved last May. So quick reminder, not to read it, tax levy is different than the tax rate. The levy is the total amount of monies that we must collect from taxpayers in the Huntington School District community to support our budget. The tax rate is what you see on your bills individually. We've gotten some additional state support. Huntington has been underfunded for many years, and we're in the process, or in the final stage of getting a lot of that underfunding back. But in the current school year, the tax levy, what the taxpayers covered in terms of our expenses, almost, well, 79%, almost 80% of our budget for the current school year. So as we build a budget, we're cognizant first and foremost of what our students and staff need. And secondly, we can't ignore the taxpayer burden. So statutory guidelines, back in, I believe it was 2011, the tax cap came into play as we looked at our budgets for the following year. The allowable levy growth factor, basically it's the amount exceeding the previous year's levy by the lesser of 2% plus exclusions, or the inflation rate plus exclusions. A little math question here, which is higher, 2% or the inflation rate? Okay, so we're at 2% plus exclusions. The rate of inflation is looked at, we follow it month by month. It's at the end of December, at the end of the calendar year, that we look at where that rate landed, average monthly over the course of the calendar year, 8%. We're in, hopefully, a point in we're at a point in time where that rate is, it seems like things are starting to ease up a little bit, but looking back to the last calendar year, 2022, 8% is leaving us with a 2% plus exclusions situation. And actually in 2021, inflation was still on the rise. Average monthly for 2021 was only 4.7%, and it seemed like it was much more pressing back then. So push comes to shove, the allowable levy growth factor for 23-24 is 2%. A little history. So the first budget I built was 11-12. I think that was right before the tax levy limit, the law, the statute came into play. But you'll see a little history here, and notice the big difference from 2016-17, seemed like only yesterday, to 2023-24. We remember that well, the 0.12% and trying to squeeze water from a stone. Now we're squeezing water from a stone in a completely different way. What it looks like graphically. So again, I've stated this before. I think most are aware of this at this point. 2% is 2%. That is the allowable growth factor. The exclusions change this, and you're going to see how the different types of things come into the equation here as the calculation is performed. But this applies to tax levies. It does not cap individual tax bills, and every home, every property has a slightly different tax situation. So let's take a quick look at the calculation so you can see where our, I'm not going to call it our starting point, but
Our limit, or
go ahead.
our limit, right? Is that what you're trying to
It's our limit. So if the board so desired, and I know this is not a desire of the board, they could raise the tax levy by as much as 4.02% without requiring a 60% supermajority approval. Now, just to mention it over and over, last year was 3.77% as a tax levy limit. If you recall, the levy increase attached to this year's budget was 0. So this is the highest we could go. It doesn't mean that we're going to be at it or anywhere near it. So just to take a quick look at its breakdown, it starts with the actual tax levy from the current year's budget. That 112,718, 438 is exactly the same as the 21-22 approved actual tax levy, because we put out a budget last year. The budget to budget, there was an increase, but because we got additional state aid, we put that toward reducing the tax base, doing what we needed with monies other than taxpayer monies. We were able to come forth with a budget that included no increase to the tax levy. So I imagine many properties in Huntington, when they got their tax bills this year, hopefully they were, you're never pleased with the tax bill on Long Island, but knowing that it didn't go up and there was a marginal decrease in there, it's a small victory. And that tax levy was adopted in October of last year. Formally, it does take till the fall to get everything into place before I can put that number in front of the board for formal adoption. So next we look at a tax-based growth factor. This is determined by the Office of Real Property Taxes, Tax Services. 1.0038 is not insignificant. It does provide a little bit of a cushion as we look at our adjusted tax levy moving forward toward this year's tax cap or tax levy limit. Very similar to last year. Last year was 1.0040. This year we landed at 1.0038. And what that suggests is there has been either and or some new construction, some newly taxable status of existing properties, meaning if you put in a pool, your taxes are going to go up. That contributes to our tax base. Any improvements you make, you add an extension onto a home, that's going to add to the property value in the community. There have been combinations of that led to anything. There are some districts that have a 1.0000, which means there were negatives or the net was nothing in terms of additions to the tax base. We had something. From there, we add last year's pilot payments in lieu of taxes. There are some abatements offered by the Suffolk County Industrial Development Agency. Also from the town assessor, there are some tax adjustments that are made where properties don't pay the full value in taxes. Last year, for the current year's budget, that totaled, or our estimate from last year's calculation, was $181,364. This reflects 2 properties that were approved for abatement programs, Suffolk IDA on East 2nd Street. That's about 95,000 of that 181,364. The other portion of it, about 86,000, or a little bit less than 87,000, is Gateway Gardens. They were in arrears. There were a number of years worth of payments that were not made, that were made last year from 2017 to 2022. So you put those 3 properties together, the 2 on East 2nd Street, Suffolk County, Gateway Gardens, that's where that 181,364 comes in. Relatively speaking, we have a $143 million budget. That's not a huge number. There are school districts upstate that are dealing with millions in pilots. We don't have that. Okay, next we get to looking at prior year exclusions. We must deduct when we're adjusting the prior year tax levy. That 9131 capital tax levy is not actually ours. It is our portion of Western Suffolk BOCES capital tax levy. That is prorated across the 18 component districts. That is our share. Again, not particularly large in the context of a $143 million budget. So all of those contribute to the adjusted prior year, or I should say current year tax levy. In this case, it's prior year because we're looking at 23-24. So if we adjust 22-23, you're going to see that 113,238,001 number. And then we go with the 2% adjustment, which is the lesser of inflation, or 2%, which obviously with an 8% inflation rate, 2% is the lesser. Multiply by 1.02, and we end up with that 502,761, which is right under that arrow. So from there, we have to take out our estimated 23-24 pilots. It's the same 3 properties. The 2 on East Second Street, the Suffolk IDA properties, a little bit higher, 97,164. Gateway Gardens only contributes 6,572 because last year's included a whole slew of years that those payments weren't made. Now we're back up to date, so it reflects the $6,572 for the next year's for next school year only. So that's why that number comes down by about $80,000, a little bit less. All right, this one is going to take a little bit of a different type of explanation than in years past. Carryover. If you come in under the tax levy during the current school year, you can carry over into the next school year. We were about 4.1 million below our levy limit within our, in other words, the board could have raised taxes by 3.77%. They didn't raise taxes by a dime. They didn't raise them by a penny. There was a 4.1 million difference between the tax levy that was in the budget and what could have been in the budget. You'll notice that's not 4.1 million there. The reason being this figure is actually the lesser of the difference between tax levy and actual levy from the prior year, which is the 4.1 million, or 1.5% of the prior year levy limit prior to exclusions. This is the first year we've been in that situation where that 1.5% is considerably less than the difference between the two levies. So we can only carry over 1.753116. Okay. Then we get to current year exclusions. No tort judgments greater than 5%. ERS and TRS, actually ERS is anticipated employee retirement system. That is our non-certificated, our civil service folks. That is estimated at 13.1% of civil service salaries. It's less than a 2 percentage point increase from the 11.6% used in the construction of this year's budget. So there is no adjustment there, exclusion there. And TRS looks like it's actually coming down, believe it or not, from 10.29% to 9.76%. Well, obviously it's not an increase greater than 2 percentage points when that percentage is going down. And that is responsible investing on the part of New York State. In this age of inflation, you'd expect that actually to go up. It didn't. It looks like it was in the range of 9.5 to 10%. And just last week, I received the bulletin, which I did share with you. It falls in right between 9.5 and 10 at 9.76%. And that's actually a positive aspect of budget building for the 23-24 school year. So put it all together. 4.02% is a limit. 117,249,710. Board has options. Obviously, I'll present those options as I have in previous years. And again, you can see on the bottom the difference between the levy limit dollar amount figure and the current year levy, 112,718,438, which has remained the same for 2 years, is over 4.5 million. So what happens now is we begin presenting options to the board. Now, obviously, I don't. This slide is repeated year after year, just so you know you have the option. But option number 1: propose a budget with the tax levy at or below the prescribed level, which is that limit on the previous slide. Simple majority vote. You get one more yes vote than no vote. Budget passes, and eligible residents will receive the associated state tax rebate. Option 2: piercing the cap, and this does not happen very often. Supermajority, there needs to be a 60% approval of a budget in that situation. People are not apt to do that because they would be ineligible for any rebates that come along with it. And that's why this slide does this. Piercing the cap is not something we need to do.
I'm surprised you use a single line to cross it off.
Well, it's the size also. And based on the fact that we're getting our third and final phase-in installment, foundation aid, the rare occurrences will school districts look to pierce the cap, and they're usually in unique situations.
Right.
So just a quick recap. Nobody leaves or watching tonight should be thinking that 4.02% is where we land. That is simply what the board could agree to, the level to which taxes could be raised without going past a simple majority vote. And the final budget presented to the board for adoption, which occurs in April, will include a levy that will likely land below the calculated limit and still comprehensively address the educational needs of all involved. So, as I mentioned earlier, the governor released her proposal, her executive budget proposal, on February 1st. That was last Wednesday. Just a couple of things to point out here, and some of these actually were mentioned in the presentation made on Saturday morning in Longwood. But the overall budget proposal includes over a $3 billion increase. It's almost 10% in total statewide school aid, so school aid to all districts in New York State. The promise has been fulfilled of completing the foundation aid phase-in. That's $2.7 billion of that $3.07 billion mentioned in the first bullet. One caveat, which I did not anticipate, which just appeared in a school aid run, without much warning, was that districts with increases greater than 3% in their foundation aid must set aside a fixed amount for high-impact tutoring. Now, if you had a chance to look at the state aid run, that set aside is at the bottom of the run. That actually reduces the amount of aid, and you're going to see that number in a second, but I can give it to you now. That's taken out of the foundation aid increase. It has to be set aside for high-impact tutoring. Exactly how this plays out, I can't even tell you at this point. We didn't expect it. Foundation aid has always been discretionary. We are anticipating a 4.021 plus million increase in foundation aid. 416,000 and change has been set aside for this high-impact tutoring.
Do we think that's different than the tutoring we do already?
Well, that's an excellent question, and what this can be classified as good intentions coming from people who don't really know what we've done or how we've done it. So they're saying, okay, here's a package of discretionary aid. We're going to make you do this with the aid. We don't have any idea what you've done already as you're coming out of the pandemic. It's all pandemic connected, and I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But to force districts to do this without really knowing what they've done over the past couple of years is not the best way to go. Now, it is possible that as the next 2 months play out, executive budget proposal comes first, then the Senate and Assembly start to put their proposals together. I don't know this, I'm just thinking out loud. They may very well pull this out and make it disappear, for lack of a better way to put it. But as of right now, that executive budget proposal requires us, and I believe it said new initiatives in high-impact tutoring, that 416,000 and change would have to be set aside for academic support.
I mean, there are worse things they could tell us to do with it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
They haven't defined exactly what they want us to do with it.
They haven't. It's just kind of a set-aside line item that's sitting there. That will come out. They do this first, then the guidance comes out later. What they typically do is you have non-educators putting this in a state aid run. They then kick it over to the state education department, who's then charged with being creative and coming up with exactly what this looks like. That hasn't happened yet, as far as I know.
These single infusion amounts are difficult to deal with because if you create a program, you can't make it happen again the following year if the money's not there.
That's exactly correct. And understand this doesn't impact all districts. The set aside is actually 11.77% of the increase over that 3%. So if our 4.021 million is well over 3% of our foundation aid from the previous year, so take that, anything over 3%, take 11.77% of that. So it makes sense. It's 416,000 of the 4.021 million. Districts, there are districts out there that have gotten larger districts that have different types of socioeconomic challenges than we do, getting a huge amount of foundation aid increase. It's all proportionate, 11.77% over that 3%. So we're going to watch to see what happens here, and we'll make it work regardless.
Yeah, this is also specifically targeted to just grades 3 through 8 and ELA and math, and that's it. That's what the tutoring has to be focused on.
Was it the NISBA rep on Saturday morning, or am I making this up in my head, who brought it up, and then I don't think, did any of the legislators bring it up?
No.
No, okay.
No, and the problem, there were 11 questions asked that day, and by the way, this wasn't mentioned earlier, a lot of students asked questions, which
that's great.
I was wondering why it was number 8, and then realized I would always defer to the students, but the high-impact tutoring never came up because those questions were submitted prior to February 1st, because that would have been my question, where's this going?
Yeah. You should have included the foundation aid formula in your presentation. We'd be here for 4 hours.
I described that to Christine earlier. It was
Oh.
that was actually Kathy told me that was pulled from Questar. Questar BOCES is involved heavily in the state aid process. They put that slide together where it shows the complicated nature of the foundation aid formula, and what Ryan Ruff, the COO of Eastern Suffolk BOCES, was trying to show is, it's a tremendously complicated formula that the average layperson, even the knowledgeable person, can't really follow, but showing where various factors fit into that formula. It was in the form of a flow chart, and I think it was more for illustrative purposes and to show how impossible foundation aid is to follow, and you'll see that in an upcoming slide.
And the data
But-
they were using
Oh,
to calculate it is 20 years old.
yeah, well,
in some
he
cases.
made that point that they're using census data from 2000. They're using income figures that are 20 years old.
Yeah, it's
So,
I'll find
that's
that
why they were
chart
trying to get out there and make sure that people filled out those census forms and trying
Right.
to really promote the 2020 census, because if people don't respond, then our foundation aid, our state aid is going to suffer as a result. So,
What's
more
curious
to
is that
follow there.
They would say that we would need this high impact tutoring in the specific areas that you mentioned, 3 through 8, without having any testing results. And you have issues like needing social workers, which may be a bigger impact to schools that are suffering a lot from the pandemic.
I think that they're responding, and this is speculation on my part, they're responding to a lot of the publicity attached to NAEP scores falling across the country. NAEP is really not a National Assessment of Educational Progress, is not really a prominent test in New York State, but also looking at the relative 3 through 8 results from last year's spring assessments. And one thing that did come up over the weekend, and I forget which legislator brought it up, is that in districts where a lot of children don't take the tests, you're really not seeing a full picture of progress based on that one measure, and why we look at multiple measures. But yes, the 3 through 8 is where this was focused, and thank you for bringing that up, Kathy. That's an important point as well. Other things we were concerned about is where she would address expense-based aids. Looks like those are fully funded. I will tell you that we are looking at an increase in our UPK funding, which is also because now we're adding seats and we're only getting a fixed amount per seat, which may increase. I think we looked at a figure of approximately, if all the seats were filled, another $94,000 on the part of the district to support that, which we would. But this is all things that another thing we need to consider during the budget construction process. But all of the expense-based aids, textbooks, software, BOCES, transportation, everything looks as it should in that state aid run. Other things just to mention, $125 million increase for UPK funding, just mentioned that. Early college, high school, and P-TECH programs, those are few and far between in this area other than BOCES. $10 million to support school-based mental health clinics. More detail there will come out shortly. An extension for public sector retirees to work in school positions without an earnings limit. That's important in teaching positions that are hard to find. There are unique situations that exist in both civil service and certificated areas where it's very difficult to find the person that you're looking for. Building aid enhanced for certain security provisions. Proposal to eliminate the charter school cap in New York City. And interestingly, there was no mention on February 1st of universal free meals, despite the fact that Connecticut just approved it and other states around the country are going in that direction. So,
I mean, they did indicate, or was it Brian Fessler, I think, who had indicated that perhaps it would be in the federal.
Right, and our congressional representative,
Yes, Nick
Lalota,
Lalota was
he
there.
commented and
He
supported
commented
it,
and supported it,
and then
yeah.
he left.
Yeah.
yeah, by the time I got up, he was gone.
Yeah, he was.
Just some things and there's more, but these are just some prominent aspects of her proposal that some of these may or may not be in the final budget that's released, hopefully on time, April 1. So some important budget considerations in Huntington. The expected final installment of Huntington UFSD Foundation Aid receivable, as I mentioned, just over $4 million. The 416-182 high impact tutoring set aside, impacting 3 through 8. If it stays, that's our obligation. Expense-based aid percentages are as anticipated. We've heard a lot about the impact of inflation and the potential economic downturn, potential recession. Hopefully soft landing still has a chance of occurring here. But we've been told over and over again that $3.07 billion overall increase in aid, That includes the 1.5 billion statewide foundation aid increase, and then there's another. The foundation aid formula includes a factor for inflation, and it's about a $200 million additional aid delivery cost for every point of inflation. Multiply that by 8% inflation. Well, there you have about 3 billion. 200 million times 8 or thereabouts, plus the 1.5 billion and change. There you have it. In Huntington and most school districts, we're dealing with contractual salary costs and stipends that are going to go up, and we're still negotiating, obviously, with a number of units. These people have to be taken care of, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we can work within our fiscal constraints, but also make sure that we're competitive and we can recruit and retain. Insurance costs, as I've shared with the board on multiple occasions, calendar year 2023, probably around a 12% or so increase in health insurance. That impacts both employees and the school district. Cybersecurity I use as another example because now we are paying considerably more for cybersecurity based on everything that's happened with it, and we are getting less coverage for more money, and that's all about what's happening in the world as opposed to anything we've done here. And by the way, that impact of inflation, and that assumes everything else is held constant. Everything else is not constant. Districts are experiencing enrollment declines. There are other factors that kick in that could modify or manipulate things beyond our control. But again, insurance costs, utility costs are on the rise, increased interest rates. Fortunately, we have very little debt in Huntington. We talk about this all the time. The only real debt we have right now, aside from a bond issue that's soon to expire at a rate that's already fixed and determined, tax anticipation notes. You recall a couple of years ago, was it 20-something thousand in interest we paid, and now we're in the hundreds of thousands, and that's just a function of interest rates. And we are still in a better place than most because our Moody's rating is high, because we have no other debt.
And that's a short-term debt that we incur every year, right?
Correct. The short, and that again, why do we have to sell tax anticipation notes? Well, town doesn't send us our tax collection. Town collects our taxes. A lot of upstate districts collect their own. We don't have that option here. The town of Huntington collects our taxes. They distribute them to us well after the school year begins. We have to pay for things over the summer and in September and in October. The only way we can do it without having been given our tax payments is to borrow. Doesn't seem right, but that's how it works. A couple of things to consider for the next legislative session. Questions we have. Legislative session, I forget the timing on this, but it is, I think, in June, the last legislative session. Foundation aid. We're getting our, assuming all goes as planned, getting our final foundation aid phase-in payment. What happens once that formula is fully funded? So after this year, there's no more foundation aid. There's no more 4-point-something X million increase in foundation aid because we'll be where we should have been years ago. What happens next to that foundation aid formula? That crazy flow chart we saw on Saturday. Some things do need to be addressed to take care of school districts either in need or that don't have the need who are really being shortchanged now. There are a lot of districts in a hold harmless situation. They are getting at least 3% of an increase in foundation aid. Fortunately, we're not one of those because it makes it very difficult in a year like this to do what you need to do. Pension reforms. This may be an annual discussion until tiers 5 or 6. Maybe never. Might never happen, but it's a lot different to start as a teacher today than it was back in the 1980s, 1990s, because the pension system now requires them to contribute more, work longer, etc., and it is a much more challenging situation. I'll leave it at that. Student discipline reform, there have been, and I think we've done, Mr. Rothel talked a lot about restorative practices here, and I listen, every school has disciplinary incidents. Our kids are great, and our staff is skilled at handling them in disciplinary issues in a manner that really shows students how to make it right, as opposed to you send a child to his room after they've done something wrong, they don't understand what they've done wrong. That's not a way to correct a behavior or to really show the right path. If somebody hurts somebody else emotionally, it's a good practice to help that student understand how to make it right and how not to do it again. And I think that's really where we are. They want to make that a statewide phenomenon. And again, we're also dealing with issues following the pandemic where incidents of discipline are on the rise in many places. So now you got to find a balance here. It's carrot and stick, and just using a stick without anything else to go along with it is not the way to go. APPR we talked about before. It is a flawed program, and my hope is that in the near future it goes by the wayside, and we have our legislator support on that. That one legislator didn't, he was not invited to comment on that, thank goodness. Red flag laws have to do with students who are at risk of possessing weapons and families at risk of possessing weapons. What's going to happen to strengthen or not strengthen those laws, and electric bus funding. Put this one on there so we can have a go at this. The real concern with the potential requirement to convert fleets to electric buses is it's a refundable expense.
Mhm.
And if you are a district that is starting from scratch and have to go from ground zero to a full electric bus fleet, garage, etc., you got to lay it out and be reimbursed for it. It's not the way to do this, and it's certainly not something that districts, and most districts, can handle. You'd have to bond to get reimbursed for that bond with all the interest involved. It's just an unsustainable and really not a fair way to fund an initiative like that.
The question the other day was, to the legislators was, would you be willing to support pushing back
That timeline.
on that timeline because it's so aggressive? And I think they all said yes. I mean,
They did seem to go along with that,
Yeah.
and this may stall for a bit because it really does put districts, particularly those with their own fleets, in a very, very difficult situation. And as you know, I've shared with you news to us this week that a Huntington coach was in fact purchased by Beacon Mobility, and we'll find out more about where that takes us in the weeks and months to come. So last but not least, budget timeline, similar to the past. Next presentation will include not only those expenses, transportation, capital, will also include the first budget draft. We have to submit the tax levy limit calculation to the state controller, and I will get some feedback from the board at how we're going to work this. What we don't want to do is, in the past, and Dr. Acker knows this, we've used that tax levy limit as our anticipated levy just because we haven't had the discussions yet. Well, then what Newsday does is they go ahead and they throw that tax levy in as your actual projected levy irresponsibly. What we'd like to do is mitigate that a little bit and try and come up with a better number to use. March 13th, 27th. 27th is a popular presentation because curriculum includes staffing, instruction and staffing, revenues on the 10th, budget adoption on the 17th, hearing on the 8th, and vote on the 16th. And vote also includes trustee election. Questions?
Jim, you started the conversation today with the capital improvements and some of the things that are coming down the pipeline, particularly this summer. I believe that one of them is going to be the fields, the high school fields. It's exciting. You get a lot of buzz about it. People are very interested about it. They want to know exactly what it's going to look like. Is it possible to have a presentation to kind of demonstrate to the community what it'll look like? And one of the biggest questions that I hear is, are we going to have lights? Are we going to be installing lights in the area? So just curious if we can do something for the community.
Okay, so here I can actually, this is a conversation that Kathy and I had today. So I did actually receive an inquiry on the field, and can we see this, how this is going to be laid out. I do want to just remind that this is not a complete redesign of the fields. It's an addition of a field where the current non-turf field that, for lack of a better term, the secondary field, the JV field, exists. There's not a great deal of manipulation. There may be some movement in terms of bleachers, etc. Those are things that I will talk to Mr. Hoops about. The lights are not part of that proposal. So when we put this this proposition in front of the voters, we're talking about the field and the drainage and the turf field itself, not the lights. We know how important the lights are to some. I can't speak for the entire community. You guys have your ears to the ground as well. We are looking at the potential in this year's monies, either as, now we're not going to have as much capital reserve monies to work with this year, and there are still some infrastructure things that need to be addressed, and we'll talk about this more on the 27th, but final piece of the high school roof, boilers, etc. But there is the possibility, and I think we got an estimate of, and we did not talk about this beforehand, I promise. It was about $949,000 to light it up correctly If you want to do that, it could either be from a reserve or we can do it as a transfer to capital. That's going to be a board decision based on some of the options that we provide. If that just kind of gives you a start.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yep. Very timely question because we literally just had that conversation today.
I guess that the busing goes hand in hand with that because a lot of the sports are starting a little bit later because of the busing. So by the time the kids get to the fields, it's already dark.
I agree, and we also know that it's much different now than it was 20 years ago. We're really not concerned about having the lights and having night games. I know there was some complaints years back, not during my time per se, when lights were brought in and they were shined out onto Oakwood Road, and I don't think those complaints are, well, they certainly haven't surfaced when we've put the lights out there now for the band and for certain contests, but I do know that people are interested in having those lights out there, so we can do some night games under the lights on one or both fields. So that's where we are, and it will be certainly a decision that the board will have, and it will be an option that's presented to you.
Can I ask a question? Speaking of lights, is there an inventory that we do? I know we look at like the boilers and things, but is there a smaller like inventory? And the example is I was in the auditorium this weekend and the house lights are on, and I'm thinking how bright it is in here, but it's pretty dark in the auditorium with the house lights on. I don't know if anybody else noticed that.
I did notice that.
Yeah. So like, and that's probably a more trivial thing, but is there like a list that we tick off of those little things that are for next year or?
Not. I mean, there is a list of items that we have, little things that come up that we know we have to address. I don't know if that's on it per se.
It was dark.
Well, that would be more of a general maintenance.
Yeah, I don't know if
that would be a work order. That would be, it's not on the 5-year capital plan because we did all of our lighting upgrades. But as far as maintaining so that you're not in a dark space, that would definitely be a typical, let us know and we'll fix it type of in-house situation.
Okay. I'll let someone.
It's really, it's not really necessarily a budgetary item.
Right.
Another thing that will happen on February 27th is we will have PSE&G come in. They will present, they're going to present, I don't know if it's a mock check to the district showing the amount that we've saved on some of the efficiencies that we've realized over the past couple of months with the new units that we've put in the classrooms and otherwise. There is an app not quite up and running yet that shows the savings that we've realized because of the solar panels. We're going to continue in that respect as well until we'd like to get to the point now maybe 10 years down the road where we're not paying a penny for electric because it pays for itself. Just throwing out a round number.
10 years, huh? It's a recurring number today.
Could it be sooner than 10 years?
100 years.
25 years?
99.
There'll be some pretty cool things presented during the capital presentation.
Yeah, Kathy and George and the PSEG reps were meeting, and I happened to step in for a bit, and they were really excited. We've done things here that are going to be used in their presentations to other districts, and we're excited. I know you know about some of this in piecemeal fashion, but we thought it might be a good idea to put it all together so you can see it in the composite and take pride in it.
Good stuff.
I mean, we have talked multiple times over the last 4 years where I thought it was ready to go, but didn't seem to have happened, where we were going to work on the auditorium at the high school, like the stage and the sound so I just want to make sure that's still in the hopper.
Well, again, I have a new arts director now who I know is passionate about this, so we're going to look at every piece of this. Now, we can't do a complete overhaul of the auditorium, but there are certain things that we can do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think they're clapping because you're done.
Not done yet. That was our final item for discussion and action, but now I will give it to Ms. McCoy for curriculum and instruction.
That was great.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve CSE, CPSC submissions as delineated.
Okay, a motion from Ms. Xavier and a second from Michelle. All in favor? That's everyone. Thank you.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve Advanced Placement African American Studies for initial implementation in the 2023-2024 school year.
A motion, please. Xavier, and a second from Kelly. Do you want, are we speaking about it, or?
You want to give your overview, and I'll
Sure.
certainly throw in my 2 cents here.
Sure. This is a full-year elective course that will provide students with an opportunity to examine the diversity of African American experiences through direct encounters with authentic and varied sources. Students will explore key topics that extend from early African kingdoms to the study of the diversity of Black communities in the U.S. within the broader context of Africa. The course will reach into a variety of fields: literature, the arts and humanities, political science, geography, and science, to explore the vital contributions and experiences of African Americans. This complements our current offering of African American and Latino politics, which is an alternative to the participation in government class.
So this is going to be, this is the first year that that course is running as a pilot, 60 school districts nationwide. We'd be entering this, we applied for and were selected to participate in the second year of the pilot program, and there has been obviously some discussion surrounding this course recently, and I'll just say sometimes you need to listen to the students in your buildings about what's important to them and what interests them and what will teach them how to think, not necessarily what to think, and this course fit right into that framework.
Excellent. I will note that I think that the College Board is doing some kind of webinar tomorrow about the changes that they made recently. They say that they've been misrepresented and that the changes that they have made aren't what's been reflected in the press or by certain politicians in other parts of the country.
We offer a course at this point at the high school. It's an elective, it's a government course, African American politics. It's a popular course, many students take it. This is an ideal time to bring some of that and more to the advanced placement level, because like any other advanced placement course, it does provide students with dual enrollment type experience and the potential for this to carry into their college credit load.
Both courses will remain available?
Yes.
And you can take either or both?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?
Timing is everything on this one, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
that's why, I mean, that's why it's in the news, is because this is when
Oh, yeah,
districts are
absolutely.
putting it on there. Okay, then, all in favor? That's everyone, thank you.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education adopt Freedom on My Mind, A History of African Americans, 3rd edition, for use in the Advanced Placement African American Studies course starting in the 2023-2024 school year.
A motion? Xavier, and a second? And Teresa?
So this text encourages students to think critically and analytically about African American history and the historical realities behind the American dream. The narrative examines African Americans' quest for freedom as a central theme and situates that quest in the context of American history. Projects at the end of each chapter offer students a deeper experience with historical figures, as well as an introduction as to how historians use primary sources.
Any questions? All in favor? That's everyone, thank you.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve Computer Science 7 for initial implementation in the 2023-2024 school year.
A motion? Xavier, and a second from Tom.
This course has a new title, renaming the prior course Infotech 7, which is a quarter-year course and addresses the new computer science standards which are required for implementation in the 2024-2025 school year. This course is designed for 7th graders to learn content and build skills in alignment with the New York State computer science and digital literacy standards, which include impacts of computing, digital literacy, digital citizenship, and cybersecurity. The course will provide a foundation of understanding for the computer science essentials class that all students will complete at the high school level or a comparable course.
Any questions? All in favor? That's everyone, thank you.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education adopt Introduction to Criminal Justice, 10th edition, for use in the criminal justice course starting in the 2023-2024 school year.
Motion from Teresa and a second from Tom.
The Introduction to Criminal Justice text is geared for students interested in learning the complexities of the criminal justice system. The authors of this comprehensive text empower students to think critically about the U.S. criminal justice system. It opens with fundamentals of criminal justice. This book focuses on crime and criminal law before progressing through detailed analysis of the major components of the criminal justice system: law enforcement, the administration of justice, and corrections. This course is currently taught with teacher-created materials and resources from various sources. The units in the text run parallel to the already established curriculum, and the text will provide for immediate access to material and resources that will enrich and supplement the existing content.
Great. Any questions? All in favor? That's everyone. Thank you.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve educational psychology for initial implementation in the 2024-2025 school year.
A motion from Teresa and a second from Bill.
This semester-long course will be offered to provide students interested in a potential career in education with an opportunity to move forward by taking an undergraduate college-level course. Huntington High School will establish a partnership with St. Joseph's University's Bridge Program and its Department of Education with the common goal of meeting the interests of our high school students who may want to pursue a career in teaching. The course is an introduction to the psychological foundations of education aimed at developing basic competence in the following areas: an understanding of growth and development, the psychology of personality and adjustment, the assessment and handling of individual differences, and the psychology of learning. This course will be co-seated with EDU 115 at St. Joseph's University. One thing I do want to mention, this course and the next course that are up are really to try to support our current students in exploring the teaching profession, as we're seeing teacher shortages, and we really know we have so much value in the students we have, and we hope that they will take some of these courses, go to college in this area, and then come back to support our community further.
It's an excellent idea.
It's great.
That's awesome.
Any questions on that? All in favor? Everyone, thank you.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education adopt Education Psychology, Active Learning Edition, 14th edition, for use in the Educational Psychology course starting in the 2024-2025 school year.
A motion, please, from Kelly and a second from Tom.
This text explains and illustrates educational psychology's practical relevance for teachers and learners. Theory and practice are considered together, demonstrating how research on child development, learning, cognition, motivation, instruction, and assessment can be applied to solve the everyday problems of teaching. The 14th edition offers a state-of-the-art presentation of the field with new and expanded coverage of important topics like the brain, neuroscience and teaching, and the impact of technology in virtual learning environments.
Okay, I forgot what we're up to. Are we up to all, I know, are we up to all in favor? All in favor? Sorry,
I'm almost done.
The next thing already.
Almost done.
I think you're ready to run the reorg meeting next year. So.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve social and philosophical foundations of education for initial implementation in the 2024-2025 school year.
A motion, please, from Teresa and a second from Michelle.
This semester-long course will also be offered to provide students interested in a potential career in education with an opportunity to move forward by taking an undergraduate college-level course. It follows the same partnership as the psychology course with St. Joseph's University Bridge Program and its Department of Education. This course is an inquiry into the process of education as seen by the historian, sociologist, and philosopher. There will be an examination of selected contemporary problems within a historical context with emphasis on the needs of a multicultural society. The effects of socioeconomic factors, health and safety issues, and other society aspects on student learning will be explored. The Huntington High School course will be co-seated with EDU 234 at St. Joseph's University, dual enrollment.
When we have dual enrollment courses, are the textbooks the same books that they use to teach the course at the college? Or
yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Any questions? No, I just think this is such an amazing opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it. All in favor? That's
Last one,
everyone. Thank
everybody.
you.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education adopt Foundations of American Education, Becoming Effective Teachers in Challenging Times, 17th edition, for use in the Social and Philosophical Foundations of Education course starting in the 2024-2025 school year.
Motion? From Xavier, and a second from Kelly.
This text addresses the realities and challenges of teaching in the current professional climate, with many new references and an emphasis on emerging trends that are impacting schools, new standards, ESSA, social and global networking. This text encourages students to embrace new and innovative methods of instruction. Concepts are explored through current discussions of theory and practice in such critical areas as advocacy, legislation, and the current socio-political and economic climates.
Any questions? All in favor? That is everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you
That was
for
a
all
lot
of your
work
support. We're
and
really looking forward to these new courses.
Everyone is, I'm sure. That's very exciting. Okay, Mr. Hender.
It is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve personnel items on Schedules 5, 8, 10, 13, 16, and 22.
A motion, please, from Teresa, and a second from Michelle. All in favor? That's everyone. Do you have announcements?
I think the only pertinent announcement here, and this will be done more formally when we recognize all of our retiring educators. Two have recently submitted their intent to retire, who've been with us for some time now. Doreen Caravallis, reading teacher at Southdown, and Mary Beth Stahl, special education teacher at Findlay. Just want to publicly recognize them and thank them for their years of dedicated service and for taking care of the kids for as long as they have. So congratulations to both Noreen and Mary Beth, and we will honor them more formally later in the year.
Okay, Dr. Ecker.
Okay, it is upon recommendation from the Superintendent of Schools that the Board of Education approve items I through O on this evening's business agenda.
A motion, please, from Teresa, and a second from Michelle. Any questions? All in favor? That is everyone. Xavier, you have the donations?
You want to go first with district-wise? Or
Sure. Whichever you want to go.
You can go first.
Okay. So we just took a step in our search for a superintendent to follow in the massive footsteps. I want to thank Xavier and Teresa and Tom for agreeing to be our researchers. I reached out first to our legal counsel and got a number of recommendations from them on search consultants to use to begin the search. And from that list, these three generously offered to spend a good deal of time independently researching and then interviewing those prospective firms. And they came to the board tonight with their unanimous, I believe, recommendation, who we met with this evening in executive before this meeting and have now all agreed unanimously again to hire district-wise search consultants to begin the process. So next week, we have announced a special executive session where we will spend time with them to learn the ins and outs of the process, to give our input on what we want the process to look like, what's important to us, and then to begin to build the process, which will include forums for all of the various stakeholders, community groups, staff groups, faculty groups, all the different groups, I'm not even naming them all, to give their input into the process as well as to what's important to them. And I'll know more after we meet with them next week of the details of the process, but one thing that we all agreed tonight while we were in executive session is that one of the most important things is to make sure that our community is fully informed each step of the process. So I would say that monthly, probably, at a board meeting every month, I will be updating the community on anything that they haven't seen happen in public as in the forums, And if anybody else thinks I missed anything to say there?
No, I think you covered it.
No, I just wanted to give a little context, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You know, we have been in the fortunate position of having a whole bunch of trustees who have never hired a superintendent, so it's not something that you're well versed in, right? And so this firm is really there to hold our hands and help. They do this all the time with districts. Help hold our hands, take us through the process to make sure that we don't, we get all of the appropriate groups involved. And so they're the experts, and they will guide us and tailor it to whatever works best for us and our community and the inputs and the concerns we want to make sure
Right.
that are heard, right? So, but it's really to help us because this isn't something, thankfully, that we've had to do a lot.
And also, we don't individually have the connections or the reach to find the appropriate and best candidates for the position. So this firm has that, and that is, those two prongs, I think, are the reason that they were selected. Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you both for that. The community's input will definitely be important in our selection process. To the donations, we'll start with Ms. Teresa Ehrman. Ms. Teresa Ehrman is presenting a donation of mixed fabric to the Huntington High School fashion classes. This donation has an approximate value of $2,000. Thank you for that donation. The Jack Abrams STEM Magnet School PTA is presenting a donation of $2,500. This donation will be used to offset the cost of field trips. That's very nice.
It's very nice.
Thank you. And our final donation is by Ms. Christy Van Groff. She's presenting a donation of 630 children's books to the Southdown Primary School. This donation has an approximate value of $6,900. Thank you very much for that donation.
Do we have a list of those books, Jill?
Do you want me to read them all?
630 books? Excellent.
Oh, fantastic.
Terrific. Thank you.
Great.
Sorry.
Okay, so that brings us to our second public commentary. I'm not going to repeat the rules. I think you all heard them before. Does anybody wish to speak? Okay. Oh, just wanted to fake me out.
Mr. Stein just got closer. I'm just.
Apparently, I'm a security threat at this point. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. A little proud of myself, maybe. I don't know. My name is James Graber. I am a resident, parent, teacher in the district, and also the president of the Teachers Association. I'm glad, Ms. Bernanke, that you spoke to that line item tonight. You actually anticipated much of what I was going to say this evening. You can imagine that district stakeholders are anxious about the process of finding a successor to Mr. Polanski. I don't say replacement, I say successor. People have a lot of questions and concerns, and this is an important inflection point in the path of the district. So I'm extraordinarily happy to hear the board's commitment to including district stakeholders throughout the process with that. I guess I'm curious, you mentioned the forums. I'm not sure if, what that means, or if that's something we should wait to find out more of after your meeting next week.
I think so. I mean, I know that it will be an opportunity for people to give input both publicly and privately. So no one would have to feel the need to state whatever they want to state out loud if they don't feel comfortable with
we
that.
can talk trash about Polanski there.
Or me, I guess. And I know also that there will be a combination of virtual meetings, and there will be some live meetings, so will be more opportunity for people to participate. Plus, there will be an email where people can send written observations, comments, concerns, suggestions, things like that.
Interesting.
To aid in the process.
And have they shared with you, or I may, or perhaps you've shared with them, an expected timeline for the process?
I think we're gonna solidify all of the dates next week.
Wonderful. All right. And will the next candidate also be a supporter of the belly dancing arts?
I would put that at the top.
We
of
can
my
only
list.
hope.
I can't believe you said that in public. I'm so happy about this. So happy.
Just
And
the
pickleball.
first two things that came to mind.
It's just what came to mind.
It's a very popular course.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Anybody else? Can't follow that. All right. Then, any last closing remarks by board members?
I'd like to give just a quick one. Perhaps I should have said it when it was talking about the course proposals, but in another capacity that I serve as my occupation as an educator, I'm in a district that is presently piloting the Advanced Placement African American Studies, and it's a wonderful course. It's a wonderful addendum to, just as we're doing here in this district, other courses that dovetail wonderfully for college credit for this class. But most importantly, and Mr. Polanski was talking about this earlier, it is a course that teaches people not what to think, but how to think, and to bring in a voice that's necessary to be heard. And especially as a social studies teacher, this is something that we always strive for. So this is all about critical thinking and just information, and having children learning exactly what they should learn, which is how to think on their own.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else? Then I will take a motion to adjourn. Xavier and Teresa, all in favor? Okay, let's go home. Thank you for sticking with us.